Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of the dceu Daily. Take a listen to this. Michael B. Jordan's Val Zod series at HBO Max finds its writer by Joe Otterson of Variety. The Val Zod series that Michael B. Jordan is set to executive produce for HBO Max has found its writers, Variety has confirmed. Darnell Mattea and Josh Peters are now set to write the project, which will focus on Val Zod, the second DC character to take up the mantle of Superman. Val is a black Kryptonian who found his way to Earth and eventually uses his powers to fight evil, including a brainwashed Superman at one point in the comics. Now this is interesting, very interesting. HBO Max declined to comment. Mattea and Peters most recently worked on the script for Transformers Rise of the Beasts and on the Star series BMF, which is executive produced by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. They also have a number of other projects in development. News of the Val Zod series being in development first broke in July. Jordan is executive producing under his Outlier Society banner, though no word yet on whether he would star in the series. Elizabeth Raposo of Outlier will also executive produce, with Outlier Senior Vice President of Television Stefano Augusto overseeing the project for the company. Warner Brothers Television will produce along with DC Entertainment. Outlier is currently under a first-look film deal and an overall TV deal at Amazon. On the TV side, the company is currently producing projects like upcoming AMC drama 61st Street, starring Courtney B. Vance, Raising Dion at Netflix, and Jen Locke at HBO Max. Outlier is also developing Victoria's Great Then Death and the boxing drama The Greatest at Amazon. On the film side, the company also has the DC superhero project Static Shock, which is interesting. At Warner Brothers, a remake of the Thomas Crown Affair in which Jordan would star, and Creed 3, which will see Jordan make his directorial debut in addition to starring. Deadline first reported Mattea and Peters joining the project. Very, very interesting. So what can we gauge from this? Well, this is something I've been waiting to hear for a very long time. We got the announcement, a very exciting announcement by the way, because I want to see all forms of Superman represented in live action. So this is great news. I've never heard of these writers. I didn't watch their Transformers project. I know nothing about them, which doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means we're moving with this project, which is great. Now, in terms of in the comics of Val Zod's Superman fighting kind of the central Superman, a brainwashed main Superman, that's interesting. Now, could it be that we could have a version of not the proper, that will be insulting to Val Zod. Alright, let's call him the proper Clark Kent Superman. Don't get offended, right? Who would they use? I broke news the other day that Henry Cavill is done with Superman. Now, I call it news, but it's still rumour at this point. We will see how that develops. But could Henry Cavill's Superman cameo in this? Is that Henry Cavill's future as Superman, you know, cameoing in these different projects? Well, I would be down for that. I've said it before. I'm not one of these who says it's another movie or nothing. I'm quite happy for the cameos. That's better than nothing. So, you know, and we've kind of had him already as this kind of, at times, evil Superman. So, you know, I suppose in that way, Henry's really good at playing evil Superman. And so a brainwashed Superman that Val Zod has to fight, it being Henry Cavill or Brandon Routh or even Tyler Hoechlin, whatever. Considering Warner Brothers Television, you know, produce Superman and Lois, Tyler could be involved. It could be any of these versions of Superman. But I think Val Zod fighting a pre-existing white Clark Kent Superman would be an awesome premise as well. So who knows? Now, this has always been a limited series. This was never going to be an HBO Max movie, but it was going to be an HBO Max limited series. So I'm very excited for this. But I think they're saying that it's going to be called Val Zod, and they're not going to have Superman in the title. That, to me, is problematic, Because, yeah, we know who Val Zod is, but the broader mainstream audience don't. So they're not going to get the views. They could call it Val Zod versus Superman. That would be fun. Or Superman Val Zod. But you've got to have Superman in the title or it simply doesn't work. And so this is very exciting news that we're finally hearing something about this project, and obviously here at Movies TV Mad and the DCEU Daily we will keep you updated with those developments. But yeah, I would like to see Val Zod fighting the main Earth 1 DCEU Superman. Now, Val Zod can be a contemporary version of Val Zod in the DCEU. It can be in Earth 1 because we don't have a Val Zod in Earth 1. And if he is to fight a brainwashed Henry Cavill Superman, it would have to be set in Earth 1. Things are moving very, very quickly within the DCEU. It's changing now. The Flash will change it completely forever. But yeah, this is a very exciting development, and let's see what these writers do. They'll write some scripts. Hopefully, this will probably take them a few months. So this project is definitely looking like a late 2022 producing filming schedule, which means we get it some point in 2023. So it's got to be part of the 2023 slate, but it's very, very exciting. As I say, I want to see every version of Superman, including John Kent, by the way, in live action, in the DC live action universe, because Superman should be front and center and should always be #1. More DCEU rumours. Batgirl movie reportedly casting Barbara Gordon's love interest. Adi El Arbi and Bilal Falah's upcoming Batgirl movie on HBO Max is reportedly casting a new actor to play Barbara Gordon's love interest by Saeed Fadullah Hassani of Screen Rant. HBO Max's Batgirl movie is reportedly casting a new love interest for Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon is perhaps the most established character in the DC Comics to assume the mantle of Batgirl. She made her debut in 1961, replacing the superheroine Betty Kane incarnation. And by 1966, Barbara also made her first live-action appearance in Adam West's Batman TV series, where she was portrayed by Yvonne Craig later. Alicia Silverstone brought Barbara to the silver screen for the first time in Joel Schumacher's 1997 Batman and Robin movie, but that is the only instance when the character appeared in a film. But now that looks to change, as a solo Batgirl movie about Barbara Gordon is in the works at HBO Max. DC Films and WB had originally tapped on Joss Whedon to direct, write and produce the Batgirl movie, but Whedon left the project in 2018, citing challenges with getting the story right. Once he left, the Flash's Christina Hodgson stepped in as the new screenwriter, and in May 2021, the Bad Boys for Life duo Adi El Arbi and Bilal Fallah were announced as the movie's co-directors. In July, in The Heights Breakout, Leslie Grace was ultimately finalised to play the lead, and now the movie is on its way to round out the rest of the main cast. As per a new tweet by THR's Boris Kitt, who's a great source, the best source, Batgirl is similarly looking to add a new love interest for Grace's Barbara Gordon. The character, whose identity remains undisclosed, will presumably be the son of an evil gangster in Batgirl, but during the course of the film he will become romantically attached to Barbara. Other details remain unclear at this point. Take a look at Kit's tweet below. This is interesting because if he's the son of a gangster, this really could be a really compelling love story, which I like the sound of. So, Sylvester Stallone first had the offer for the part, but things just didn't work out. Obviously not as Batgirl's boyfriend, but the part that Brendan Fraser's playing. That's what he says at first. Another key role in Batgirl, the son of the gangster villain who becomes romantically linked to, well, you can take it from there. True news, Brendan Fraser has been cast as the villain in Batgirl. Some reports say he will play DC villain Firefly. So this is interesting. Could it be that they might make Carmine Falcone a younger character, and maybe that's why Stallone couldn't play the role, and Brendan Fraser is playing Firefly, not Carmine Falcone, so they could either be using Falcone's son or a younger version of Falcone. That's interesting. We may not see Falcone in this. What they could do is just use Falcone's son as the love interest. While Kit may not have let out sufficient details about Barbara's new love interest, His previous tweets, as well as ongoing speculation about the movie, tend to suggest the identity of the character earlier. The source had pointed out that Batgirl would include the staple Batman villain Carmine Falcone, with the initial assumption being that Doom Patrol's Brendan Fraser was playing the role, although later the report was corrected, as Fraser was confirmed to play Firefly instead. Despite the new confirmation, rounds about the crime lord Carmine Falcone's appearance in Batgirl remains strong. And since Falcone is a gangster in the DC lore, it would make sense if the new love interest in question is his son, the nefarious mobster Alberto Falcone. In the comics, Alberto and Barbara's arcs never intertwined, but if Batgirl seeks to change that story, there is certainly a way it can go about doing that. Alberto and Barbara, for one, come from the same psychological place. They are looked down on by their parents and overshadowed by their elder siblings. So if Alberto really is in Batgirl, which Grace describes as a dark origin story for Barbara, then presumably the movie would see the two connecting on an emotional level. Due to their shared trauma, Barbara might also lean on Alberto for support before eventually finding out that he's the deranged holiday killer, Alberto's alter ego in the comics. This might lead to a confrontation between the two in the movie, and in the end Barbara would emerge as Gotham's true vigilante after defeating her own love interest for the sake of the city. All of this, of course, is just speculation, but it can certainly be a sound possibility if Batgirl is actually looking to add Alberto as Barbara's boyfriend. Now this is very, very interesting, everyone. This storyline would be great, and if it truly is a darker story for Barbara, I'm all for it. I think these two Bad Boy for Life directors are a great choice. The decisions they're making are so on point. One of the things they said recently is that Ben Affleck's Batman is the real Batman when asked who is the Batman in this movie. Now, it's pretty obvious that it must be Ben Affleck's the Batman in this movie because we've got Commissioner Gordon. We've got J.K. Simmons Commissioner Gordon. But if he's deleted in Flash, that it could be Keaton's Batman, and you could still have J.K. Simmons Commissioner Gordon as the Earth 1 Jim Gordon. So that doesn't necessarily definitely mean that it's Batfleck, but who knows? Who's the real Batman? Michael Keaton or Batfleck? In the comments down below, that's going to be an interesting question for you lot to answer. For me, I don't think I hate a version of Batman. Even George Clooney has his good points. But yeah, the best are Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck. They're my top three. But I don't go on Twitter, slaughtering Clooney or Affleck, or I think they're all valid for different people. And if you like George Clooney's Bruce Wayne Batman, good for you. I'm not gonna invalidate him for you. But yeah, at this moment in time, it's either Michael Keaton or Ben Affleck in this story. But Batman is definitely going to be in the Batgirl movie. We just don't know which one. They could build up a Bat family. Using this movie, we could have a Dick Grayson, Jason Todd in this movie. I think this is where we're going. And they're going to use this as a skeleton key to build up the Bat family and the entire Batverse. But there's a deeper question here. And this is not a Batgirl question. Who is going to be the DCEU's Batman going forward after the Flash movie? Will it still be Batfleck? Will it be Michael Keaton? Well, it's an interesting question because, as we've discussed before, we know that there's hints that Michael Keaton will be back in the New Earth 1 after Flashpoint, that he'll be a reality after Barry resets things. That's a possibility. I would think it will be insane to delete Batfleck, even if he's trapped in an Elseworld somewhere. Do that, but don't delete the guy. Trap Cavill and Affleck in an Elseworld somewhere when the multiverse is rebooted. But deleting them, I think, would be a bad thing and would upset fans, and you really, really don't want to upset the fans. But I really do like the way the Batgirl movie is developing. It's interesting because Leslie Grace's casting is very, very kind of, it's inclusive, isn't it? But she's a talent. She's not just there because of her minority background, but it helps them. It ticks a box for them, and that's cool because at least she's talented. Now, All the other castings are not really done in the modern Hollywood way. And I mean, Brendan Fraser isn't your typical casting of nowadays. Obviously, he's a white male, but he's a villain. The Falcone character, the son, obviously would be a male as well. But I think that's a great story, a great first story for Barbara, because I mean, just imagine if she has to like kill the man she loves or fight him. That would be utterly compelling. So Batgirl, for me, is coming along nicely. Now, away from the DCEU, but still obviously on the subject of the DC universe, there's a brilliant interview here with Screen Rant with Bruce Timm. For me, he's one of the greatest DC storytellers we've ever had. So let's see what he has to say. Bruce Timm interview, Superman the Animated Series Remaster. Bruce Timm speaks with Screen Rant about Blu-ray remaster of Superman the Animated Series and how Superman has been adapted over time. By Stephen M. Colbert of Screen Rant, following in the steps of its predecessor, Batman the Animated Series, Bruce Timm's Superman the Animated Series has a Blu-ray remaster of its own. The set contains 21 hours of content across 6 discs, including extra features, commentary, and the remaster is sourced from original 35mm and audio recordings. Bruce Timm is responsible for some of the most iconic interpretations of DC characters across multiple animated series and movies, from Batman and Superman to Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. In the light of the remaster's release, Bruce Timm spoke with Screen Rant to discuss the series and how Superman has been adapted to different mediums over the years. From the complexities that come from adapting a major character like Superman to different audiences over the years, to when and how Superman should kill, to his opinion on whether or not Superman's costume should have red trunks, Timm revisited Superman the Animated Series to answer Screen Rant's biggest questions. Screen Rant, something that I think is interesting in remastering this series is it's something that was so iconic when it came out and defining for a generation of Superman fans. Yet Superman has evolved a lot over time and has a lot of different interpretations. How do you think that impacts the way you would develop something like a Superman show in 2021 versus in the 90s? And how do you feel about the relevance of this version of Superman now getting this release a decade later and its place in the zeitgeist? Bruce Timm. I haven't actually watched much of the show recently, but I would imagine that it still holds up pretty well. We definitely made some specific decisions to make the show somewhat separate from our Batman show. It's not as dark, it's not as spooky, it's not quite as retro, but it does have a little bit of that some kind of timeless feeling. So hopefully it will not have dated all that horribly. In terms of what to do with that nowadays in 2021, you know, personally I don't have to worry about that because it's not my job. But there are interesting things happening in the Superman world and in live action and in animation as well. There's the new Superman and Family show, which was really interesting to me. That's a different spin on it. Everybody always makes the joke that the comics are kind of like our R&D division. They get to try out all the weird ideas, but it's kind of true. They've come up with some really interesting takes on Superman in the last couple of years, like the whole Superman and Sons thing. There's a lot of different influences to pull from. I would think if I was going to do a new Superman project at the moment, when a lot of these animated shows get remastered, the aspect ratio will be changed to widescreen. Recently in live action, when Zack Snyder's version of Justice League was released, it made headlines because he made that in 4.3 and had his big banner before the movie started. That said, to preserve Zack Snyder's creative vision, this is being presented in 4.3. Since this is something you originally designed that way, then it's preserved with the re-release. How does that influence the way that you portray the character in that aspect ratio? Bruce Timm. I don't know about the character, but I do keep in mind whatever aspect ratio the show is for what it's going to be re-released in. And we designed for it. So Superman, of course, we designed specifically for 4.3, and so we give that stuff some thought. I mean, on a show like Justice League, famously, the first 2 seasons of Justice League, we had to shoot it full frame. But we designed it to work both in full frame and widescreen, and we actually tried to get it released that way when the first season initially aired. So there was a little bit of leeway there. But a show like Superman, where we're using every square inch of that frame, top to bottom, so it could be converted to widescreen. But it would take somebody literally watching every single scene, making sure that Matt would work with it. I'm always interested in how that frame is utilised and how that changes the perception, Bruce Timm. It really shouldn't be one size fits all. I watch a lot of streaming like everybody else does, and one of the things I love is how on HBO Max, besides all the new content, there's stuff like the old Addams Family show on there. It's like, oh great, I haven't watched Addams Family in a long time, and thank God they're on there in full frame. They're back on their 4.3, and people are smart enough to realise, oh hey, my TV isn't busted because I'm only seeing tiny square in the middle. And here's the thing about Zach's movie. I was laughing when I first watched it. The fact that he went 4.3, I'm like, is he just trying to be different or what? But it actually really worked, and it's strange because you're so used to having things like these big epic movies being more widescreen. And after a while, you didn't even notice it anymore. I never did, to be honest with you. It was just like, yeah, he composed every shot for the frame, and it really works. It's really cool. So you know, whatever, more power to him. You know what? Yeah, everyone made a fuss about the 4.3, and when I first heard about it, I thought, is this going to feel like a movie to me? But when you watch it, as soon as you see it, I watch it all the time, and I don't even think about it, so there you have it. With Superman, because you have different people who are introduced from different iterations, it's hard to determine what is the definitive version of Superman. Is there a checklist of unshakable checkboxes in the way that he's portrayed? How hard is that as someone who's developing a Superman story to stay true to the character but not make it just a simple paint by number? This is who Superman is. Bruce Timm. Well, you know, I think you kind of put your finger on the answer just by saying that. There's been so many different versions of him previously, and just as we did with the Batman show, we kind of cherry-picked parts of different Superman shows and cartoons and live action and movies and everything. Just the things that we liked. So it's kind of the Princess Bride way of doing it. Like, we leave out all the boring parts, we just give you the good stuff. He definitely has some challenges because his costume is pretty old-fashioned. It's in primary colours. We did certain things with that, just with the colour palette to kind of darken the blue and put a little black on his trunks to kind of make it look like the comic books. But it's still a really strong kick-ass design. The biggest thing was, at the time in the comics, Superman had come back from the dead, and he came back with a mullet, and DC Comics was pushing really hard to give him a mullet in our show. And I was like, no effing way am I giving him a mullet. And they're like, oh, but this isn't just a flash in the pan. This is going to be his look from now and forever. And I'm like, no, it's not. A year from now, he'll be back with his short hair. I know it. And literally the decision had to go all the way up to the head of Warner Brothers, Bob Daly, had to weigh in, and he said, no, I think we should go with a classic look. It was crazy, but yeah, I definitely resisted updating that. That's interesting. So I like a creative with, let's say, passionate, aggressive opinions, and this is an aggressive opinion. He's not going to keep the mullet. He's obviously not going to keep the mullet. Let's keep Superman with that hairstyle, because it may not be important to people who don't love this stuff, but it is important to the fans, and obviously Bruce is a fan, and he made the right call there. Since you also touched on the trunks, do you have an opinion on trunks versus no trunks debate? Bruce Timm, not anymore. I mean, when they got rid of both Batman and Superman's trunks at first, I just went, that looks weird. It looked like they were exposed somehow, because for my entire life, both of those guys had their underwear on the outside, but now I'm used to it, so I don't really have a strong opinion on that either way. You know, it's like it's fine either way, works for me. It's said that Darkseid is the only person Superman is willing to kill in Superman the animated series. Is that true? And is that a firm line, or is there a more absolute answer to that? How do you determine when this is and it's not okay with a character like this? Bruce Timm, you know, it depends on the specific projects. When we did the first of our direct-to-video movies, Superman Doomsday, I actually literally wanted Superman to break Doomsday's neck, to stop him. And again, DC Comics had a really big problem with that. They said, no, Superman will never kill no matter what. He will always find some other way. And I had arranged it so that it was exactly like what happened in Man of Steel, where Superman was being held immobile and innocent people were about to get killed. And I thought, well, Superman is going to do the only thing he can do, which is to break Doomsday's neck. And they just wouldn't let me do it. But now again, that was for a project that I knew was supposed to be more adult orientated, and it was going to be PG-13. I probably wouldn't have gotten there at all if it had been just a children's animated program for television. Quite right too. And the only time we even flirted with the dark side thing was in the Justice League episode, where he's literally coming this close to saying, yeah, I want to kill that guy. But it's really just more a matter of, as Dwayne McDuffel, God bless him, as he once put it, he gave us that great "I live in a world of cardboard" speech, where it's like Darkseid is one of the few bad guys that he can actually let loose on and not worry about him being killed and vaporized instantly. Everybody else, Superman, always has to pull himself back a little bit, but with Darkseid he could just go at it. Darkseid is psychologically, he's the one guy who can get under Superman's skin, unlike any of the other characters, even Luthor. He's the guy that pushes all of Superman's buttons in the worst way. He brings out the worst in him. Yeah, this is interesting with the no killing or killing thing. This is what I think. In Man of Steel, Goya puts him in a position where he's got no choice, and DC and Nolan allowed this to happen. This was David Goya's idea. So I'm kind of okay with it there, even though it was only done for controversial reasons and it didn't really have a storytelling domino effect, which is sad. So it was just done for effect. In terms of this is one of the things I love about Superman, and it's really represented in Man of Steel. When he's in the bar with that guy, and he could easily kick the living shit out of him, he holds himself back. That's what I like about Superman. In Man of Steel again, when Whitney Fordham is bullying him in the flashbacks in Smallville, he's crushing the bar. He's trying to not hurt him. That's what Superman is. He's all about restraint, and we see a lot of restraint in Man of Steel, and that's the right way to go at Superman. He's got all the powers of a god, but if he doesn't have the restraint, he's not Superman. He's not the hero that we love. A famous interpretation of the character frequently cited as from Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill, when Bill gives this speech about the difference between Clark Kent and Superman, and says Clark Kent is not Superman's true character. It's a persona he takes on and serves actually as Superman's critique of what he believes humanity looks like. Are you familiar with that? Do you agree with his take on that? Or where do you think you draw the line between Clark and Superman? By the way, watch that line in Kill Bill. It's fucking amazing. I don't know if I agree with it, but it actually makes sense. There's actually logic to it. Bruce Timm, I don't have an overall one-size-fits-all view of that. I can see both sides of it. The way we always portrayed him is that Clark Kent was more of his true nature in the Superman show. And in Justice League, it's like he's the guy who was born and bred, or he was born on Krypton, but he was raised by two God-fearing people in the midst of the American heartland. So they imbued him with all of their sense of right and wrong and morality. So I think that's much a part of him. His human part is as much part of him as his Kryptonian superpowers. I think Alan Miles in Smallville did that perfectly. He's Clark Kent, but he's also Kal-El. I think it's like us in real life. We are so many different things, and this is why I always say to you people, we're not bad. We're not good, we're not perfect, we're flawed. Embrace your flaws and accept everything that you are. It's okay, but don't go around like breaking any laws or anything like that. But you know what I mean. So that's a really, really good interview, and I really enjoyed reading it. You know my opinion on Bruce Timm. He's a pioneer. He's done with the DCEU, the DC Animated Universe, what Kevin Feige has done with the MCU. That is the success of DC moving pictures, not live action, but telling a story on a television. And even some of those animated movies have been in cinema screens as well. It's a great success. And I've always said, if Bruce Timm could do such a great successful universe in animation, why isn't he the DC film president? I think he would be perfect. Now, it looks like it's not going to happen, but who knows what the future holds. Great interview. And finally today, I want to congratulate Denis Villeneuve on getting the Dune sequel. It's very good news. It was always going to happen. So Mick, why are you talking about a Dune sequel on the DCEU Daily? Because I think it's connected. Not in terms of Dune being part of the DC Extended Universe. Yeah, I bet you got a bit, what? But in terms of what happened to Zack Snyder, look, I've been saying for weeks and months now that the movie director auteur is the future of Hollywood. And they're fashionable now. Denis Villeneuve and Matt Reeves have got proper fans like the Beatles and Elvis Presley had, right? And like DC characters themselves. People are starting to warm to the idea of the auteur director. But when Zack Snyder was doing DC movies, he was rejected by the broader audience because what he was doing was so vast and epic and they couldn't get their heads around it. But Zack Snyder actually broke the ground for Denis and Matt to be doing what they're doing now. And that's brilliant. But is it too late for Zack Snyder? I know Zack Snyder fans are very upset by this Dune sequel and what Ann Sarnoff's been saying, that it didn't have to make money for it to be, you know, commissioned for a sequel and stuff like that, when they were saying different things. Listen, I think the thing is with Denis Villeneuve and Matt Reeves, they understand the studio system. And even though Denis kind of attacked WB over the day and date publicly, ferociously, he has a lot of respect for what they've allowed him to do. You know, they're distributing the movie. They own about 20% of the Dune franchise. Legendary own 80%. But as I said to Boris Kitt from The Hollywood Reporter, the percentages are irrelevant. If Warner Brothers don't greenlight that film, as distributors, it's not happening. Distribution is what gives you all the power, whether to greenlight it or not. Because Legendary don't have the platform to, you know, to do that anyway, because they're always working via other studios. So, Warner Brothers literally cancelled the Snyderverse. And it's so sad, and I understand how you're seeing them speak this game about a similar director making a vast franchise, but then Snyder's vast franchise was, you know, debunked and cancelled. So I understand the frustration, because I love Snyder's DCEU because it's vastness and its epicness. So will the Snyderverse ever be restored? Maybe, maybe not. But here's the thing, a little bit unrelated to the DCEU. There's another Snyderverse coming, and it's Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon universe. The Star Wars we should have got from Disney. And that's very good news, and that's very exciting for everyone who's a die-hard Snyder fan. But we may never get the Snyderverse, but we still got Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. So if we get nothing else, he was still successful in doing that. Unfortunately, sometimes pioneers come too soon. But this pioneer broke the ground for Matt Reeves the Batman. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, subscribe, please comment, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection, and I'll see you again tomorrow for even more DCEU Daily. Until then, goodbye.